necessary for Māori to make such a political statement? No. Because when you are the king of your castle or the queen of your kingdom, you know that you are that queen. So really the treaty and the declaration was just a sign of the times in terms of that we were globally engaging as we had been for some time, and needed to just make that clear. If there was anyone out in the world that wasn't quite sure as to whether or not Māori were a sovereign nation, as sovereigns over their lands, that was the purpose of that. So the treaty really is an extension of the declaration in terms of that it just guaranteed to Māori, yes, you will continue to be the sovereigns of your lands while we will start governing our own people, the British. So of course the problems occurred when Kāwanatanga, the authority that was given, was not upheld in terms of controlling the behaviour of the settlers and the breaking of our own laws and our own tikanga. And so that compounded really with the growth of the British numbers and European numbers in our country. So as said, in 1840 there were 2,000 British people living in our country. By 1855, in the establishment of their parliament, when they actually established what was called the settler parliament, what we call the coloniser parliament, 1855, by that time, between 1840 and 1855, we had over another 50,000 come. So 2,000 people in 1842 was around 55,000 in the mid-1850s. Now also, as I know is similar to what has happened here, is that the Māori population as well really suffered in terms of numbers. Part of the reason why we had required stronger governance of British was because of the introduction of diseases, the displacement of lands that were already happening for some Indigenous communities. And so the Māori population had really started to suffer by that time. So 1855, we were still around 60,000, dropping from the 150,000, massive losses. But the British population had risen, from immigration had risen to around 55. But then of course, in the 1860s was when what is often called the New Zealand Land Wars started. Now, where I'm from, we don't really refer to it as the New Zealand Land Wars because it was about land, but it was also primarily about sovereignty, about who is going to be the sovereign over our country. And so when that started, in the 1860s, and we started to have mass confiscations of land, millions and millions of acres. This is when we really saw the flood of European peoples into our country, to the point where by the end of from the beginning of the 1860s to the end of the 1860s, 200,000 people from Europe had come and made Aotearoa their new home. So, end of the 1860s, Māori population is still dwindling, between 40,000 and 50,000 now, and British population is 250,000. So since the 1870s, Māori have been now a minority in our country, and that's still the case. Now, we've done many things to resist, and certainly our ancestors have never ever stopped trying to ensure that our country is run on our law, our tikanga. Why? Obviously not because we just want to be the people that are in charge, but because of the inherent belief and trust in our systems, that we can live as one with Mother Earth, with our waterways and with other people, and we still believe that there is no problem within contemporary society that we are facing where the answer is not within our tikanga and within ourselves. And so that's certainly something that our ancestors right since that time have tried to uphold, and that we try and uphold today. One of the ways that we have tried to do that, and it's really hotly debated as to whether or not this was a good idea, but one of the ways that we have tried to do that is by engaging and participating with the coloniser parliament, with the And certainly, I mean, they were outrageous for a long time and still are. And it has only been through the hard work of some of our people that we have managed to make some gains. So, in terms of the Idle No More movement, I just wanted to speak briefly about some of those gains that we really desperately are trying to hold on to, and how subsequently they are in fact under attack at present. In particular, is three pieces of legislation. One is the 1975 Treaty of Waitangi Act. The other one is a Resource Management Act that was passed in 1991, and the Local Government Act of 2002. So just briefly, the Treaty of Waitangi Act was where in 1975, so years and years after it had been long been thrown out by our Parliament as just an agreement that was entered into with barbarians. So it was what they legally termed a simple nullity. And by 1975, our people, as we said, had not stopped protesting. And a huge rise, really, in the movement of our people in the streets and in the cities led to this call to honour the treaty. So in 1975 we had a piece of legislation passed called the Treaty of Waitangi Act, which actually acknowledged the treaty, and it set up a tribunal in order to be able to look into claims that people were making that the treaty was not being followed in our society. 10 years after it was made historical, it was able to look into historical grievances, and that's how we have our treaty settlements at present. The most important thing is that it was a beginning. It was a beginning to being able to try and entrench some sort of rights within the legislative system while that's still the system we have. I'm not saying it will be forever, but while it's still the system we have. The second thing really that has come about from that foundation is the Resource Management Act. Now, why I mention it is because the Resource Management Act of 1991, it recognised a tikanga of ours called kaitiakitanga. Now, kaitiakitanga it acknowledges our responsibilities as guardians of the earth and of the waterways and of everything in it. And so this word kaitiakitanga is actually in the piece of legislation and has just really paved a path in terms of our ability to be able to protect and to be able to protect our mother from certain developments. Another act then that has helped strengthen that was the Local Government Act of 2002. And what that states specifically is that local governments, so local authorities, city councils, district councils, what they must do is that they must involve Māori. So in most instances we've hoped that means the local people in decision making. So any decisions that are made about waterways, providing resource consents, must be done in consultation with the local people. And it specifically names things like wāhi tapu, which are our sacred sites. Wāhi tapu, places where we gather food, so for us that also means medicine, and places that just have some cultural significance. So there's those three pieces of legislation. The problem obviously is that they have never ever been explored to their full capacity. That lots of councils, etc., just